the logo.
The logo. I love it. Jared, I love it.
Yeah.
Jared, I love it, Jared. Is Jared watching?
Jared's watching. I think he's getting a haircut right now. He told me he's going to tune in. I realized he hasn't been tuning in because I had this text chain of people to tell him I'm on the show. I left him off.
Jared, we love you, homie. We love the logo. What tell us about and guys, you'll see it in a matter of moments. What's the yellow line on top?
Oh, actually, so this is his hat. But since it's a black hat on a dark shirt, that's my fault for picking a dark gray shirt here. So
I like it. I like it. It looks really good. Guys, give the show a like and a share. I am now tweeting the show from my personal profile to 15 other Twitter accounts that we manage here that make up part of the I Love CVille network.
And you can watch it on LinkedIn too.
On LinkedIn, on YouTube, on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, 15 Facebook pages. A lot of folks watching it in on demand on ilovecville.com. Anywhere you engage or how you engage with the content, we appreciate your support and thank you for spreading the gospel. Tell your friends, tell your homies, tell your family, tell your enemies. Spread the gospel. That is the I Love CVille show. And when Lee Elberson is in the house, guys, it is scintillating. It is scintillating.
I don't know about that.
It is engaging. Yeah. It's entertaining. It's eloquent. Give me another E adjective. Exquisite.
Exquisite. Ooh, yeah, that's
elaborate.
Nice. Yeah, elaborate. Yeah.
Yeah. Give me one, Lee. You're up. Engaging, entertaining, enlightening.
Oh my gosh, dude,
enlightening.
I'm totally blanking. Yes.
Exquisite.
Wow.
Energetic. Exciting.
Egocentric, maybe a little bit.
Egocentric.
I don't know. It's a little bit. The show kind of plays into that.
I love it. The first one he comes on with is egocentric.
There wasn't much left. You guys didn't leave me.
That's a Freudian slip if I've ever heard one right there. Gosh. Maybe a very direct one.
Yeah.
All right, guys, give the show a like and a share anywhere you're watching. We're going to have some fun. Welcome Short Pump, Virginia, to the program. Short Pump, thank you kindly for watching the show. Arlington, hello on our heat map. Thank you, Arlington and McLean. Hello. Our friends outside Nashville watching the program right now. Buckhead in Atlanta, Georgia. Great following there. Henrico, hello and welcome to the program. Do we have the Esquire, Scott Aaronworth from Virginia Beach? Scott Aaronworth, are you watching the program? Yes, he is. He just hammered the like button. Scotty Aaronworth, we love you. Kevin Yancey, are you watching the program? The King of Waynesboro. Carol Thorpe, the Queen of Jack Jewett, are you watching the program? Vanessa Parkhill, the Queen of Earlysville, are you watching the program? Give it a like and a share. We will rock and roll. Judah, you got that 3-shot set up for us? Judah does have the 3-shot ready to rock and roll. Let's have some fun. Let's learn a lot. And let's rock and roll. J-Dubs, we're in your hands. Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille show. My name is Jerry Miller. We are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille network. Today's show is going to be spectacular. Thank you kindly for joining us. Skooma Boutique Dispensary, one of the presenting partners of the I Love CVille show. Skooma Boutique Dispensary, located next to Rapture on the Charlottesville Downtown Mall. Your dispensary with certificates of analyses for everything in the store. A lot we're going to cover, guys, on the Friday edition of the program. Lee Elberson is in the house. Maybe the only guest we have who tries to influence the content of the show before the show starts.
I mean, I'm just trying. Yeah, I just try to help out in whatever way I can. Yeah.
And if you haven't noticed, why don't we go to the 2-shot and welcome Lee? We're wearing beads right now. Mardi Gras beads. In fact, these beads have pink little ducklings on it. I can't wait to give this strand of beads to my son. And they squeak.
Oh, you're gonna hate me for that.
Beads straight from Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Tell us about your Mardi Gras experience.
So I think everyone should experience Mardi Gras. I think the best place to do it is in Lafayette, Louisiana. It is my hometown. I know I'm biased, but it's very family oriented. Jerry, you and your wife and your son could go on the parade route and not feel threatened. You'd have a good time. You have plenty of space. You catch a ton of beads, eat some good food, and it's all around just a good time. Now, if you're in your 20s and you're a college student, New Orleans Mardi Gras is probably more your speed, because up and down Bourbon Street, they party pretty hard.
I went to up and down Bourbon Street in the French Quarter for my brother's bachelor party. I was the best man before he got married, and it was a den of debaucherous, sinful, engaging entertainment. A number of, we'll call them gentlemen's quarters all over the French Quarter. And like sirens to a jagged, dangerous coast, these scantily clothed sirens were trying to seduce us into these gentlemen's quarters from the outdoor steps of said quarters. We looked from afar, but did not venture into said quarters. The French Quarter, an experience like I've never had in my entire life, Lee Elberson.
All right, now, so I'm just going to tell you, so I think, so we took my in-laws to New Orleans after Mardi Gras, the best time to go. The debauchery is usually localized to Bourbon Street. The French Quarter is a lot more than just Bourbon Street. It's about 80 blocks from, oh my gosh, am I going to mess this up? Ramparts to Decatur, and then Canal to Esplanade. Wow.
Okay.
Okay. And there's so much culture there. There's a lot of Creole culture there. There's art. There's so many great things to do there. And we had an amazing time. We stayed on the corner of Bourbon and Orleans Street, right in the center of the French Quarter. And there's just so much to do there. It's so culture rich. You can you get some of the best food, I think, in the entire nation in New Orleans. So I recommend everyone go. Don't necessarily go around Mardi Gras if you're bringing your kids. And if you do that, I guarantee you'll have a good time.
Scott Aaronworth says, love you too, bro. Virginia Beach Esquire, Neil Williamson. Hello and welcome to the program. Give that show a like and a share. Jazz Fest, you're a huge fan of, Lee Elberson.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Jazz Fest. Louisiana, I think, has the most number of festivals compared to any other states. That's because we like to have a good time. Like to party, and so Jazz Fest is really big. I think Jazz Fest is around May, as is Festival International in Lafayette about that time.
Our homie Blake Hawthorne, your homie watching the program right now. Blake Hawthorne, hello. He says, howdy from California, gentlemen.
He might be rocking his I Love Seville shirt, who knows?
Send us a pic of you in the I Love Seville shirt, Blake Hawthorne, and I will do what I can to get some more beats from Lee Elberson. Yes, it may be PG-13 today on the Friday edition of the program. Blake Hawthorne, howdy from California, he types on one of the 15 Facebook pages. My wife is a realtor in California. We live in a town of 60,000 people. She has 2 of the 15 listings in the entire 60,000 person jurisdiction. I'm going to say, Blake, I relayed this live on air to the beaded clad Lee Elberson. Enter.
I think that what that tells us is that
this is a perfect segue for you with some of those graphs.
Exactly. So I think what this tells, so Jerry and I sort of go back. Jerry is really good about bringing hyper local content to the people of Charlottesville. I love starting with a more global perspective and talking about how Charlottesville is it is insulated in some ways, but what happens in Charlottesville is happening in many other places. We heard it from, what's the gentleman who comes on Wednesday from Ross Mortgage?
Scott Morris. Scott Morris getting some love.
He talked about how Charlottesville is not unique in this perspective. So what is happening on a global perspective happens in Charlottesville. So I think this is why these graphs are very useful.
All right. So you know what? I very much appreciate you. We'll adjust the motif of the program this one time for Lee Elberson.
Give me an inch and I'm going to take a mile.
I know. I'm very well aware. The beaded, cladded Lee Elberson. Let's go with the first graph. The show is yours. Judah Whitcower. Let's respond to Lee Elberson. Judah Whitcower is our director.
So, Judah, pull up number 1. %of max. Yeah. So what I did, I actually watched Quentin this morning, and I've been watching all week, and what I did is I just put together a historical perspective of the last 40 years, and this is of average gas prices in Virginia, median housing price in Virginia, interest rates, GDP, and inflation. And I put 2 I think, really precursors that are helping us decide what's happening now. Because what's happening now is everyone's worried that maybe there's a recession, the housing prices are going up too much, and then we're on the brink of not necessarily war, but that we are conflicting with a country that has some production of oil globally. I think Russia produces like 15% of the world's oil. And while that doesn't seem like a lot, I think
that's a lot.
Speculation will probably drive that much farther. So that's why they're saying gas prices are going to, I mean, some people say it's going to double and it's going to be $6 a gallon. I don't think it's going to be that bad. But what this graph shows us is that, as Quentin and Keith have been talking about on the show, housing prices just go up. They're very, like, they're almost, they basically
one of the best investments that a man can make.
Yeah, they're not affected by anything. As you can see, the only time they really went down was the recession in 2007, and they pretty quickly rebounded. It took them a few years. GDP obviously sort of it trails housing prices, and I think that's like they're both on sort of an upward curve as expected. As Quentin mentioned this morning,
Quentin Beckham, the quarterback.
Quentin Beckham mentioned that the inflation is really tied to gas rates. And if you look at those two graphs, they're almost identical in terms of where they peak and valley. When there's a spike in gas prices, inflation is going to spike. And when there's a drop in gas prices, we're going to see a drop in inflation. So I think what we're going to see, and then interest rates have just continued to drop. Interest rates don't seem to really be affected by much. I think I'm going to
except Jay Powell and the Fed Reserve.
Except I'm going to speak way out of my depth here. I don't know anything about this. I think the Federal Reserve uses it to sort of manage like local crises within the course of months or a year. But overall, they are at historic lows.
The Federal Reserve undoubtedly utilizing raising rates to try to check inflation. Inflation is getting a bit out of control. In fact, Consumer Price Index was released yesterday, and the CPI number checked in at 7.9%, which is astronomically high, the highest it's been in decades, and that does not even factor in the escalating cost of fuel, because CPI is a lagging indicator. It's indicating a metric from a short term in the past. It's not today's number. So that CPI number that comes out the next time is going to be even higher because the price per gallon of gas at the pump is more than it's ever been. So localize it. Charlottesville and Central Virginia.
Yeah, so the graph is based on Charlottesville gas and housing prices. So I'm not going to speak to housing because you have two very capable people, Quentin and Keith, who speak about that amongst others. But in terms of gas prices, I tend to believe experts that we will see a spike probably to $5 a gallon in Charlottesville, and that will probably hold for several months. I think that's more speculative, but if this is any indication, I think long term, over the next several years, we're likely to see a 25 to 30% overall increase in gas prices. So I don't think it's going to be a spike and then it's going to relax back down to what it is now.
So I'm going to use the word nobody wants to hear. You ready? You know what that word is?
Does it start with an R and end with an Eshin?
It starts with an R and ends with Eshin. I hate to say it. I will bring it back up.
Yeah.
Are you nervous, concerned, as a crystal ball prognosticator that utilizes models and metrics, KPI and data, reasonable thinking and thought? Are you at all concerned about a recession?
I mean, I'm worried about that, but I'm always the bear. I'm actually more interested in what you're thinking because you're always very bullish. You surprisingly are very usually optimistic.
I am very optimistic, and I have to be optimistic as an entrepreneur and the owner of 3 businesses. I will say this, there's no time in the 14 years that I've run and managed these businesses that I have been more trepid or nervous about a recession. Goldman Sachs releases essentially a white paper and some analyses today. And in this analysis, Goldman Sachs says we're looking at somewhere now about a 35-40% chance of an recession.
Yeah.
35 to 40%. You can't uptick fuel like we're doing at the same time that inflation is trending at 8%, and it's going to be even higher once these fuel prices start getting escalating into it. At the same time that a warmongering madman is attacking and invading another country,
Yeah.
You cannot do all these things or have all these things happen at one time without being concerned about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's an entire discussion around the motivations of Putin, because it doesn't seem to have an end game in terms of like actually occupying Ukraine. I mean, let's say he takes the capital, he doesn't have enough resources to hold it, given what resistance he's already shown. So what are his other motivations? Are they financial? Is he trying to drive the price of oil up for his own financial gain and maybe gain of other oligarchs? So I think that we're headed for it. And, when you were asking on the show earlier this morning about have we ever seen a point in time that has similarities to now, I think the two things I'm pointed at is like we're on the brink of war and we're on the brink of a recession, which both of those show extreme changes in the data, and that's usually not going to be good for us. And that compounded with the fact that, again, interest rates seem to be, somewhat, they're not influenced by in any of the other data, but the Fed has told us that they're going to increase interest rates, right?
Multiple times this year.
And Quentin mentioned, as a prospective home buyer, Alex and I look, I run these interest rate calculations. He said it this morning, if you're buying a $400,000 house this year at 4%, and then you want to buy that same house next year, you're going to pay $70,000 more in interest over the lifetime of that loan. I mean, I guess it's really how it changes your mortgage value, but in terms of absolutes, that's what I look at is like, wow, so I'm basically losing $70,000, which is
buying power,
a good salary for that's much more than the average American makes, right?
Yeah. Freddie Jackson giving you some props. Scotty Williams
Freddie
giving you
Jackson.
some props.
Oh man.
3 states on the feed, 4 states now on the feed watching today's program. All right, so let's cut to
Freddie,
the chase here.
Thanks for tuning in. Freddie, just real quick.
Love No Ego Foundation.
Yeah, he watches the sunset every single morning.
I love it. He watches the sunrise.
Watch the sunrise, yeah.
Yeah, every single morning, sunrise, Freddie Jackson. All right, so let me cut to the chase here. You got home prices escalating to clips and levels that have never been seen in American history. That's a fact. We've never seen home prices at this level in American history.
Look at the slope of that. Look at
the slope of the graph. Do you have the graph?
That's what's crazy.
Which graph do you want to see? It's back on screen.
It's still on number 1. It's not the fact that it's high. It's the fact that it's a slope, right? Like that's when you're speculating, when you're going to buy in the stock market. It's not like, hey, Google's at 500. It's like, I mean, I don't have any context. It's like Google's going to grow by 70% tomorrow. It's like, oh, what? Like if the slope is that high, that's crazy. It's the slope of that housing.
It's an elevator, not an escalator.
That is so dangerous.
Yeah, it's an elevator, not an escalator, and that's what makes it so dangerous. We're about to put another graph on screen, and wait for me to call it. It's going to be personal. It's going to be the used car graph, vehicle comparisons, true cost to own graph. Okay? It's going to be the true cost to own graph in a matter of moments. I'm going to outline a scenario for you that is nothing but factual, statistical perspective. Are you ready, Lee Elberson?
Yep.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. We have consumer price index released yesterday. Basically, we'll call it 8% for the sake of the conversation. It was 7.9% to be exact. CPI, 7.9%. It's going to be higher than next CPI, the next time CPI is released, because this 7.9% did not factor in gas. That's an indication of disposable income being diminished in Americans' pockets, in Charlottesvillians' pockets, okay? We have a used car market that is damn near close to being upside down. I can sell my 2020 Ford Explorer Platinum V6 today for more than when I purchased the Explorer 18 months ago. I can sell it more today than what I paid for it. All day, every day.
I'll raise you that. The Jeep dealership calls me. I bought that Jeep 5 years ago. They'll pay me exactly what I paid for it 5 years ago.
Okay, so he just raised me.
And I'll raise you again. My buddy, I convinced one of my good friends, Tim, to buy a Jeep. He just bought a brand new Rubicon Jeep, which is the top of the line. We were looking at used car prices. The used 1 year or 6-month program Jeeps are $10,000 more than a brand new Jeep.
Okay. Do you hear what he just said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Viewers and listeners that are listening to the gospel here, I'm going to relay this to you again. Inflation at a level we've never seen in decades, A. Used car market flipped on top of its head, where used cars today are selling more than what Lee Elberson purchased his Jeep for 5 years ago. We are under inventoried from a real estate standpoint, 25 million units nationally, thousands of units locally in Central Virginia. Gasoline prices the all-time high in American history. Federal Reserve and Jay Powell literally talking about 1, 2, 3, 4 rate hikes in 2022 alone. We have a Ukrainian war, Russian-Ukrainian war, inspired and spearheaded by a warmongering madman that is literally floating terminology like nuclear weapons. Literally. We have global economic sanctions that are being bestowed or slapped on Russia by countries all over the world. We have nickel, a commodity, wheat, a commodity, natural gas, a commodity, escalating to prices we've never seen before. We still have not solved the supply chain issues associated with labor and cost of goods, issues that reared their ugly heads during the pandemic.
They affected a lot more than that. Louisiana is the biggest oil producer in the United States. They are still only at 60% of production because of supply chain and personnel management issues.
We have there another point. We have all three major indices in correction or bear market territory. Dow, S&P 500, the NASDAQ, all in correctional territory or in bear market territory. Okay? We have Main Street literally telling everyone, if we don't increase the prices on our menus, we cannot keep our doors open. We have assessments nationally exploding to levels that homeowners have not seen ever, and that's because the real estate market is bananas right now. These are all facts that I just relayed. All facts. Those are facts that keep me up at night.
Yeah, and I mean, and the other element to this that, I mean, it probably plays out in some of what we've talked about, but we've just injected trillions into the U.S. economy that it's making us artificially feel like we're better. Like, I will mention this at 8 Hats. You know, we support businesses, and we've seen record numbers of businesses coming in and spending money on services that 2 years ago they wouldn't have been able to afford, because so much money has been injected into businesses for PPP funding and in personal finances. So if I'm a business owner, I got some injection from the stimulus personally, so I'm feeling good with my family, and I got some injection with my business. So I'm thinking, hey, I need to grow my business. And so that's happening on the business side. On the personal side, we're still feeling pretty good. I don't think spending has dropped substantially so. So I think we're at an inflection point, which mathematically means something is seriously about to change. 4
states watching the program right now. Danny O'Day watching on LinkedIn, account manager for Politico Pro. Danny O'Day will get to some of our commentary that we had yesterday on Rachel Brackney and her comments about the Downtown Mall Beer Garden. We'll talk about those with Lee Elberson. Blake Hawthorne, he's watching in Cali.
Yeah.
Gas prices, he says, are part of the global market setting the price. Russia and OPEC lowered production last year to respond to the bottoming out of prices in 2020. That started the shift upwards in oil prices. Combine that with the spike in demand and the supply sector behind on that, then Ukraine and the general price gouging of corporate oil barons whose profits have quadrupled and in some case 10x profit levels, and you get the spike we're having today. A lot of truth to that. A lot of truth to that. Let's add another factor into the mix. We were quarantining for 2 years. Today's the 2-year anniversary of the pandemic. And over the last 2 years, we have stayed inside or close to
2
home
days
base.
short in Charlottesville. It was Friday the 13th when I guess this was
Pandemic
when
nationally.
UVA announced. Well, UVA announced it on the 11th, right?
Okay,
Wednesday the 11th. Yeah.
UVA announced it on the 11th. It was used. The word pandemic was used by the federal government 2 years ago today. 2 years ago today, we heard the word pandemic for the first time. So 2 years, we've played it close to the vest from a travel, from a transport, from a getting out of the home base standpoint. So now that COVID is becoming behind us, and people are sprinting out of Dodge and getting on the road, going out of Mardi Gras, unbuttoning their shirts like I'm doing right now. I'm literally unbuttoning. Okay.
Oh, I don't have any more. You want the speed right here?
Unbuttoning my shirt.
You get the
like
last
I'm doing
beat. There
right
you
now.
go, my man.
I get the last beat. Thank you very much, Lee Elberson. I'm going to put that out. So people are sprinting and leaving their house. They're using gas, and it's a supply and demand thing. Demand has never been higher, and it's never been higher when supply has never been more. When supply has not been this constrained in decades.
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at?
100%. I think Quentin did a good job of...
Quentin's watching right now.
Yeah, Quentin did a good job of trying to level set this and saying that, we do adapt. And so regardless of the conditions we're in now, I think we shouldn't be too bearish because we didn't know in 2001 what we know now when we went into war, and we didn't know in 2007 what we know now. So we've learned from those lessons. I guess still the bear in me is worried that the old phrase, you don't know what you don't know, and so you can only regulate and prepare for the circumstances that you're aware of. So because we've never seen this before, I feel like as an average citizen, I see this and I think, wow, it's really terrible what's happening in Ukraine. This is really terrible what's happening in gas prices. It's really terrible. It's crazy what's happening with low inventory, high inflated rates. Okay, what does that mean for me? Like, what do I do? Do I just sit here and watch the news and complain? Or like, what can I actually do about it?
What can you do about it? And Judah, let's go to the one-shots and let's get the rundowns on screen on those one-shots for us that I sent to you. So what can you do about it?
Okay, so here's my recommendation. And when you're ready for a graph, so I'm a very metrics-based person.
Yes, you are.
I come up with a decision matrix when we buy a car. I came up with a very elaborate decision matrix to buy a house. And I come up with a decision matrix pretty much to do anything. And what it does is it allows me to put metrics behind it, and then I still have that gut check in me that's like, you know what, this doesn't feel right. So Alex, my wife, has a great car. It's a 2015 Subaru Forester. Never had any problems, always been serviced at the dealership. I told her, in sort of the same vein I said 2 years ago when I said private schools have never had a higher value proposition, I told her, I was like, now is the time to sell a used car and buy a hybrid. We will save $10,000 in the next 3 years if you buy a new car right now. Because...
Did she listen?
She is. Well, and also part of the supply chain issues is, she wants... So Jude, if you want to just quickly flash on screen, so I put together, Edmunds does a great true cost of ownership of a vehicle, 5-year cost of ownership.
This is the 2020 Toyota RAV4 Prime versus the 2015 Subaru Forester.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So what Edmunds does is it puts together like the actual cost, because people are like, oh, well, I got to pay this, I got to pay this. If your car's out of warranty, you're going to have higher maintenance costs. And if you have an ICE, internal combustion engine, you're going to pay more in gas. You're probably going to pay $1,500 more in gas this year. That's me speculating and some adjustments I did on this. And if you buy a hybrid, the Prime is the plug-in hybrid, which I can explain later when we get into the EV segment. But it actually will be $10,000 cheaper over the long run for her to buy a new car and sell her used car, because new cars, essentially the prices are set. As long as reputable dealers won't add those fees. If you go to some dealerships, they add crazy fees. But her car, she can she can sell within thousands of dollars of what she bought it. Subarus hold their value really well. So if you're interested about your car, go to Edmunds. Judah, I put it in the resources link. We'll put it in the show. They have a true cost of ownership. You put in your car, and it tells you over 5 years what it's going to cost you to maintain and pay for that car.
All right, so keep the graph on screen. Look at the screen, look at the screen, everybody look at the screen right now. LinkedIn, look at the screen. YouTube, look at the screen. Facebook, Twitter, look at the screen. Literally right now. What are we seeing with this graph?
Okay, so this breaks down basically the true cost of ownership, which is insurance. That's pretty much going to be static, vehicle to vehicle. Maintenance, which is definitely not going to be static. If your vehicle is out of warranty, you have to incur all of those maintenance costs. Whereas if you buy a brand new car, the dealership covers it for 3, 6, 10 years, whatever it is. Repairs, those, again, those are going to be higher if your car is older. Taxes and fees, obviously it's going to be higher the first year you own it. So if you look at that graph, you see buying a brand new car this year, taxes and fees are going to be extremely much higher. One thing Jerry mentioned is they're increasing the personal property taxes. So here in Charlotte,
25%.
You have to be aware of that. My Jeep, I think per year I pay about $700. So that means I'm going to see a hike of, what is that, $200?
So you're paying it's about $200.
$200 extra a year.
175.
Yeah. And then you'll see financing costs. You'll see depreciation. Depreciation is really what's going to hit the initial new car, but it's going to affect every car year per year. And then the main thing, when we're comparing with a RAV4 Prime, which is the plug-in hybrid, which means Alex is going to come home, she's going to plug it into the house, and then she's going to drive around on her 50-mile range, and she's not going to pay for gas when she's in town. Main thing it's going to affect is when we're going long distance. That's when we'll have to pay for gas. So that's what's going to primarily affect her fuel costs.
I love it. I love the information right there. Lee Elberson dropping knowledge bombs right now on the I Love Seville show. So let's talk about this from a local standpoint, and then we're going to get to some other topics that people are itching about the tax rate increase, Charlottesville City, Buford School reconfiguration. Going to get Lee Alberson's take on that. Personal property taxes are expected to uptick in this location about 25% per person. 25% per vehicle. To the point where Charlottesville Commissioner of Revenue, Todd Divers, said this yesterday in a budget work session. This is the Commissioner of Revenue for Charlottesville, Virginia. And folks, this applies to your jurisdiction as well. Remember, commissioners of revenue have to associate personal property taxes tied to fair market value. Fair market value, essentially Edmunds, Kelley Blue Book, are what you're going to get taxed upon. So because of this chip shortage in all cars or computers, manufacturers are manufacturing less cars. You're seeing less cars on the market. You're seeing more buyers than ever before, or people needing cars more than ever before.
6 months to get that RAV4 Prime.
6 months to purchase a car. 6 months to purchase a car. So because there's such difficulty purchasing cars right now, the prices are going through the roof. And because the prices, if you can talk to our guy over there, and because the prices are going through the roof, guys, commissioners of revenue are warning municipalities that property taxes are going to go up. This is what our commissioner of revenue said in Charlottesville. And then, Lee, I'm going to get back to you. I can tell you some of these bills are going to curl people's hair. I'm the one that gets yelled at. We need to prepare the citizenship of what's coming down the pipe. Lee Alberson.
So frame it for me in terms of your perspective, and then I'll add some commentary on that.
This is what I'm concerned about, and this is why I've been utilizing this robust platform to highlight this. We had assessments on real estate, and this is not unique to Charlottesville. This is across the country.
They're assessing for higher than they could actually sell for. Is that what I heard on the show this morning?
We are at a new construction shortage of 25 million units nationally. What's the American population? 330 million?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, so call it 330 million.
Yeah.
Of those 330 million, what number do we anticipate are children or folks 18 or under? Can you look that up, Judah?
30%?
330 million total Americans. How many of that 330 million are 18 and under people? Judah's looking that up for us right now. Okay? While he gets us that question, the second part of the question, How many of this 330 million are folks at the back end of their life, maybe in nursing homes, hospitals, or extended care facilities?
Highest aging population of all time.
Highest aging population of all time right now, okay? So here's what I'm saying. If there's 330 million Americans and X amount are 18 or under, shoot, you can even take that number and extend it to 24.
Are you talking about eligible home buyers?
Yes.
Is that what you're trying to run?
You can take it till probably 24 and under.
Yeah.
25 and under. 25-year-olds ain't buying, 24-year-olds ain't buying homes that much. So you take it to 24 and under, and then you also add the folks in extended care or nursing home settings, you probably have a number that's probably in the vicinity of 200 million. What's that number you got, Judah?
18 years, 2020 is...
Can you go on a 3-shot and put the
million.
mic so people can hear what you're saying, please? If you can go to the 3-shot, thank you kindly. That way the folks that are listening in their cars and watching can see your handsome and intelligent face right here.
Smartest guy in the studio.
Smartest guy. What do you got?
let's see.
Here we go.
The population under 18 years in 2020 was 73.1 million.
Okay, so 330 minus 73, what do you got?
It's about 25%. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, so
Oh, you like total?
Total number.
Yeah, but let's say 250.
Okay, say 250.
Yeah.
And I'm also gonna do back at the net.
I've got the numbers if you need them.
Okay, keep going. So tell us the population that's 25 and under.
Oh, I don't have that detailed.
Okay, what do you got there?
18 and under is 73.1. 18 and over is 258.3 million.
Okay, so 18 and over, what's that max out at? 18 and over, that category.
What do you mean, was it max?
All right, so let's just use this, okay? There's probably 200, if you count on it, 220 million real legit home buyers in America. When you factor in the 25 and under, and you factor in the folks in extended nursing homes, extended care, call it 220 million. When you're under inventoried by 25 million units, you're talking 11.5 to 12%. And that's all happening at the same time that millennials are flooding to the market to buy real estate. That's what's driving up the cost of assessments, because we don't have enough rooftops. So when we don't have enough rooftops, people are fighting tooth and nail to buy homes. A supply and demand issue. This is Economics 101. On top of that situation, you have the used car market with personal property taxes going through the roof, because the same thing. We don't have enough used cars. On top of that, you got the gasoline crisis. Right? On top of that, you got a freaking war. So where I'm getting at with this is, when City Council and the Commissioner of Revenue is telling us, geez, people's hair is going to be on fire when they get these bills. This is every jurisdiction in America that's going to deal with this, because the used car market is this bananas. We legitimately are on the cusp of taxing jurisdictions so much that those living on the financial margin will not be able to afford to live in them and will be pushed to the outskirts. I am terrified projects, capital improvement projects, like a $75 million school reconfiguration project for one school. Projects like this will gentrify.
It's been in the works for about a decade, right?
Been in the works for a decade. Projects like this, and it's not unique to Charlottesville. All municipalities have capital improvement projects. I'm terrified projects like this are going to make communities more wealthy and homogenous than they've ever been before.
Now, just to add another layer to this, I wonder if the low inventory has been exacerbated by, is there an increase in second home buyers?
The low inventory has been exacerbated by...
Percentage-wise, like, are people buying second houses and rental units more than ever before?
I think the low inventory has been exacerbated not necessarily by that, but it's been exacerbated by bureaucracy, red tape, and by exclusionary zoning that's been around since times of segregation. Here's some background for those that want to know about Charlottesville, Virginia. The city of Charlottesville is 10.2 square miles. 53% of the city of Charlottesville is zoned R1. In R1 zoning, it's a single-family detached home.
Yeah, can't have a supplemental unit, right?
ADU,
yeah.
Auxiliary dwelling unit.
Yeah.
The reason these 53% of the city of Charlottesville was done 53% R1, single-family detached, is because during times of segregation, there was this thing called white flight. And in white flight, wealthy white folks were sprinting from city and urban environments because of straight up racial motivations, racist motivations. They were going to suburbs for backyards and white picket fences and neighborhoods that embodied what they thought they should embody, which now we know was the definition of racism. So governments associated with cities had to change zoning to keep white flight from happening. And they created this exclusionary zoning where they changed the 10.2 square miles of Charlottesville and made over half of the city for single-family detached homes, creating the narrative or allowing the narrative to be pursued of backyards, front yards, and white picket fences, and the potential to eradicate or keep white flight from happening. It was freaking racist as all get out. The definition of racism. But because of that exclusionary zoning, because the zoning is single-family detached motivated, we don't have the freaking density in our city to accommodate the demand that we have. And as a result, all these single-family detached homes, and we've showcased some of them. Did you see the listings we put on Shamrock Road and on Chesapeake Street on social media? Dude, you got 830 square foot homes on Shamrock Road that are selling with that have an asking price of $800,000.
I mean, God, you can buy a balcony place on Bourbon Street for that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I'm just trying to. I mean, I think that your points on racism and the structures that were built out of racism, we have gone into that a little bit on the show, and I think a lot of structures were built around that. I think, maybe even a more overarching theme than that is that we build these sophisticated structures, financial structures, housing coordination structures and institutions that once they've gone on for 10 or 20 years, it's increasingly difficult to roll those back and change them, and so we leave them in place when they don't make any sense now. I mean, look at it. It happens all over the country like that. It's electoral college. It has to do with zoning. All of this is based on things that don't make any sense. Our education system, the way we teach it in a building, these certain classes, is based on a structure 200 years ago.
Yeah, well, okay, and there's so much I can unpack there. Let's talk about the educational system.
Yeah.
We learned during the pandemic that it was potentially capable to learn in a virtual setting.
Not effectively.
It was not effectively, but it was our first taste of it. And we know former Board of Visitors, Helen Dragas, Board of Visitors at one time at the University of Virginia. One of the reasons Helen Dragas of Virginia Beach got bounced from the Board of Visitors at the University of Virginia is because Helen Dragas was the loudest, most vocal proponent of Coursera. Coursera is an educational, this man knows it better than I do.
Yeah, I've taken many Coursera courses.
A digital educational infrastructure. And Helen Dragas told us a decade ago, University of Virginia better get freaking ahead of Coursera and realize this is the future of education. And everyone at the University of Virginia, not everyone, but a large portion of it said, no, we need to prioritize and protect the current way of learning of keeping students on grounds and charging them $80K for in-state or $50K for in-state, $90K for out-of-state.
Colleges may be structured as nonprofits, but it's a money-making business.
It's a money-making business.
It's a $1 trillion industry. The U.S. college industry is a $1 trillion industry.
So they cared about their bottom line. And the reality is, and certainly with the incredible speed that innovation is happening in AI, with the incredible speed that Mark Zuckerberg is doing with the metaverse is going to change this world. Whether we want to admit it or not, you have one of the three most powerful people in the world, one of the richest men in the world, Mark Zuckerberg, who is saying the metaverse will be my lasting legacy and what I'm known for. He's going balls to the wall, all in on Coursera, or on metaverse. So you have this digital infrastructure that is rapidly improving. The future of education is not in a dark, antiquated, poorly ventilated classroom with a teacher that's underpaid in front of a chalkboard teaching 20 kids. And students in Charlottesville and city government in Charlottesville are about to invest or are considering investing. Fortunately, that is cool now. I'm going to get out of your way here. City of Charlottesville is considering investing $75 to $90 million to reconfigure one school when we don't even know 10 years from now how kids are going to learn and whether that's in a classroom or not. And if they make that move, $75 to $90 million of investing in one school, they're going to gentrify the community and not even serve the kids that they're trying to do well by with the reconfiguration.
My man's pretty lit up today.
It is just backwards thinking. It's the antithesis of entrepreneurship.
I don't know if it's backwards thinking. I think it's I think it's doing like what we know. I think trying to change a 200-year-old education system, it's gonna take major players to try to rattle that, and you have to rattle the industry is consisted of not just consumers, it's parents. Remember when we had this discussion a few months ago, and I tried to tell you, it's not that parents don't have the right to say how their kid learns best. They're just not qualified to do it because you need an expert to tell you how to do it. Well, experts have told us what good educational pedagogy is. It's just going to take a radical change to the way we do things. And radical changes are very difficult. Right?
Okay.
Instead of that 90 million, if we said, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to create a variety of community partnerships, and this class of kids is going to be better prepared using project-based learning and peer learning than any other class in the past. Parents would have a tough time with that because they learned in a classical educational environment, and nobody wants their kid to be this pilot program because pilots, the first few years, they don't turn out so well, right? Do you want your child to be the first in a pilot program that's going to be, hey, we think this will work out, this is based on good, but we're going to have to tweak things a little bit. No, make that the next class after me.
Gary V is a guy that I look up to and admire. Have you heard of Gary Vaynerchuk?
I don't think so.
Gary V. Check him out on YouTube. Gary VEE, or Gary Vaynerchuk is his full name. He made this comment. Everyone was so freaking concerned about their kids spending so much time with a phone, on social media, on digital media, to the point where they're limiting their social media and their digital media. What if there's the parent with the mindset that we're going to allow our kid to use digital media in strategic ways for as long as they want? Will that kid become the next app or mobile developer of the stars? At one time, parents were really, really concerned. How old is Bill Gates? 60?
73?
Bill Gates. At one time, when Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were coming up, parents had issues with their kids working in their garages on boxes that a flickering green light was on the screen. And they said, dude, go out and play some baseball. Go out and hang out with your friends. Go out and get some baseball cards and put it in the spokes of your bike and drive down Mulberry Street with a red wagon tied to your bicycle, throwing newspapers. And Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Michael Dell said, no, I'm going to spend my time doing this in the garage. And now look at them. What we're afraid of, or the unknown, scares the bejeebus out of us, no doubt about it. But some parents will embrace the unknown and just have a trust that it will work out and their offspring will benefit from it. Now, to answer your question, would I want my child to be the first in a Coursera kindergarten learning environment? No, I wouldn't. And that speaks to me not having the cojones and confidence to trust the unknown will work out.
The devil you know, right? Like, there's a lot of problems with our education system, but our education system produced you and it produced me, and well, with all its flaws, I think it's taking that risk, right? And I think as an aggregate, I can see the benefits, and I know, and I truly believe that we need some sort of monumental shift in the way education is done. But I don't have kids, but I can imagine that if I did, I would say, well, I'll put my kids through the normal thing, and then I will supplement it because I know that I can supplement it with what's gonna help them the best.
Danny O'Day watching on LinkedIn, account manager, political pro. Let's not forget how this factors into local schooling as well. Schools like St. Anne's Belfield saw dramatic enrollment increases after Charlottesville refused to integrate the city public school system. And he's exactly right. Vanessa Parkhill says you made a point about Airbnb and vacation homes and second homes. She's the queen of Earlysville. The evolution of Airbnb has to have an impact on the housing market. These houses that have been available to permanent owners or renters are now out of the mix as short-term rental options driving revenue. So she agrees with Lee Elberson's point right there. I'm going to add this. Okay? I'm going to add this here. I'm squeaking my rubber duck on the beads that Lee Elberson gave me here from Mardi Gras in Louisiana. These are Louisiana authentic beads.
Authentic.
You are one of the best poker players in Charlottesville and Central Virginia.
Do not frame me as that. I know poker, but yeah.
At one time, did you pay your bills as a gambler playing poker?
Yes, I wouldn't take that as a gambler. I think is mitigated risk, so I would not classify myself as a gambler.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you?
But yes, I did.
At one time, you played your bills as a strategic poker player.
Yep.
And did you do well?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And the reason you stopped was not because of the poker. The reason you stopped was because of the quality of life associated with that path of professional pursuit.
That's probably fair. Yeah, I think that affected it. And then it's different doing something as a hobby and doing it as a profession.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the point I'm getting at is you're not afraid to make a wager.
Definitely not. I'm very risk seeking.
So I have a prop bet for you.
Okay.
Here's the prop bet. Would you bet any kind of sum of money you want to bet that the future of education 10 years from now, 10 years is not that long a time, 10 years from now, is kids learning in a classroom, in desk, from a teacher who's underpaid in front of a chalkboard with these things we call books? Or would you bet 10 years from now, the future of education is kids learning on a tablet or something digital from a teacher that is extremely well paid, and well paid because they can teach students in volume as opposed to 18 or 20 at a time. And the only way a teacher or a professor can teach students in mass volume is through digital infrastructures. Let's take one of the most renowned professors at the University of Virginia, Ken Elzinga, professor of economics. Okay. If we make Elzinga a UVA professor that's able to teach to the world through digital infrastructure, his brand goes up. When his brand and profile goes up, he makes more money.
So make some comments on your question here. Keep going.
When his brand and profile goes up, he makes more money. He's going to be able to innovate even more his curriculum because he's going to put more time into it. More people will be reached by this guy through digital versus a classroom on grounds. One of the ways we can solve the underpaid nature of teachers is by using digital for them to teach more kids. Right now, the state of Virginia is doing a large portion of the funding and the local jurisdiction, Charlottesville, for schools. We're not getting much money from federal government. It's the Commonwealth or it's the local jurisdiction that's funding them. What if we created a scenario where there were less teachers teaching more kids? We could raise their pay. Less teachers teaching more kids. Then we could raise their pay because the overhead is lower. I would bet, and I'm going to get out of your way, and I'm a gambling man just as much as you are. The risk I've taken, I get this question all the time. How the hell at your age have you been able to purchase a building on the downtown mall? And my response to them would be, I've taken risks that would scare the freaking bejeebus out of somebody. Risks that literally, even for me who's pro-risk, have kept me up nights in a row. The risks are that great, okay? But they paid off. I would be willing to bet that 10 years from now, education is done digitally in ways that are not synonymous with today. And that's why investing 75 to 90 million for a school reconfiguration project that's going to take years, if not close to 10 to finish, is ass backwards and fiscally irresponsible.
So, quick precursor here. We're risk-seeking, probably not as risk-seeking as our wives, because they took a chance on us, right?
Touche.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So
my wife quit a hedge fund job on Wall Street to move down here with no job. She met me on July 10th. By August 28th, she had moved in with me.
And you were wearing cargo pants on a plane.
Cargo shorts and a tank top on an airplane.
I remember
That's
that story.
That's a true story.
Yeah, I remember that. That was on our trivia episode. Yeah, my wife, well, she was going to quit her job and move to Charlottesville, but luckily her job was like, hey, we'll let you work remotely because you're so awesome. So what's very important in any sort of bet, and I tell this to anyone who's going to make a bet, is you have to make sure to be very explicit in what you're betting and the framing of it. So if you said the future of education. When I think the future of education, I think very aspirationally. I think aspirationally, yes, I'm 100% in agreement. In reality, because I see how slow things move in the education sphere, it's just going to be a percentage of students that learn virtually. I think the other thing we need to do is we need to bifurcate the age of students. We know that very young students do not do well in an asynchronous virtual environment where they're not captivated by sort of an in-person presence. I think 15 and older, I think I would probably maybe draw the line there. Some educational psychologists probably would put a little bit younger, but 15 and older, college, definitely 100%. UVA has already seen many of their asynchronous virtual classes be very successful. It's just about monetization now. So you are a hyper-capitalist, I would argue.
I would say I'm a social capitalist.
You're a hyper-capitalist. You're the most capitalist person. I think you.
I am
in your mind, capitalism can trump any other sort of methodology, right?
I am a social entrepreneur that prides himself in successfully running multiple businesses in the black, but does it in the way where his footprint in the community is better off than when he first arrived, from a social justice and giving back to the community standpoint.
You know, I would love to disagree with you, but I've always asked you to have more CIC entrepreneurs on, and every time I send you a CIC entrepreneur, you do showcase them. So that's a great way to showcase small business. So I appreciate that, and I'll give you kudos for that. So I think
we dumped $30K into creating this network for the sole purpose of showcasing Charlottesville, Virginia. And it was by happenstance and hard work and some good luck that the $30K we dumped into this network turned into another business in podcasting.
It's not good luck. It's this gentleman right here. You know that, right?
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
We got a guy that shows up to work and that knows how to run equipment, and you got a guy on the other side that is a captivating host that knows how to make people feel comfortable in front of the camera and the microphone. And it happened at a time.
Very kind of you to say that, but I'm not the actual host of the show.
You are. You embody all those qualities, Lee. And it happened at a time when legacy media was losing market share.
So I think in order to frame what you said, I don't think it's going to be a significant difference in like 8th grade and below. I do not think in 10 years there's going to be a significant presence of virtual learning in 8th grade and below. And by significant, I mean probably less than 10%. Aspirationally, I would like to make it more. And I think try to make it more capitalistic, and to speak to what you know best, I think it would be great if you had teachers who could monetize their feeds based on clicks, so that the teachers who are producing more premium content are receiving benefits from that. Content creators on YouTube, Nebula, CuriosityStream, they make like thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, some of them. And I think if you produce high quality content,
look at what we're doing.
We live in an age, where you can monetize that. Either monetize it through ads, Patreon, a variety of different sources. So
literally what we're doing.
I think if you had teachers produce streams and had two different funnels, one is you could certainly sell ads maybe for educational materials. You'd have to be very specific and siloing that because students are watching. And then if you had like some sort of contributory stream, which is like Patreon or something similar to that, where you could contribute to these educators, I think that would sort of help the cream rise to the top. And I think you have a tremendously high number of teachers that would fall under that.
Look,
Teachers don't do it because they're hoping to get paid a lot. They're passionate about education.
That mindset's going to change. That mindset's going to change. And it has to change. And you know what's going to drive that mindset changing? The fact that teachers, pretty damn soon, are not going to be able to afford to pay their bills. And when you take 8% inflation, you combine it with gasoline prices where they're at, when you combine it with home assessments, real estate assessments where they're at, and you combine it with freaking cost of goods like groceries where they're at, and personal property taxes, used cars where they're at, teachers and those that are on the financial margin are pretty damn close to not being able to pay their bills. And the middle class is going to be eroded, and the lower class is going to be increased. And that's literally what's happening right now. I envision a world, and we're going to get to some of these other topics. I envision a world where, and this is very much like real estate, very much how real estate's going to be, very much how teaching is going to be, very much how banking and finance is going to be, very much how just about every space of business is going to be. It's going to be about brand. It's going to be about personal brand. Folks are going to be able to leverage digital infrastructure that is ubiquitous and approachable right now to build personal brand at a level they've never been before. So the Ken Elzingas, the economics professor that's the most renowned at the University of Virginia, or the Larry Sabato, the politics professor most renowned at the University of Virginia, they won't need the university anymore as a vehicle for their teaching. They'll be able to create the education piece themselves. So they can create a studio like this. They can teach in front. They'll have one or two team members like Judah. They'll offer their teachings in robust digital settings like this, and they'll create a gateway link. A gateway link. This is how you get my knowledge. You're going to pay $259, whatever the freaking number is, whatever the money is per semester to get my knowledge. And when it's done, I'm going to provide you with the Ken Elzinga or Larry Sabato stamp of approval. And this stamp of approval, as this form of learning becomes more ubiquitous, is going to be synonymous with college diplomas and graduation degrees.
It's very aspirational.
They're going to be educational mercenaries.
I think
free agents in baseball.
To some extent, that already does happen, and I would be careful. I think some of the things that you've mentioned over the show, just to play devil's advocate,
please,
for the sake of a talk show, I think we need to be careful about the anecdotal fallacy. When you mention Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, those are two of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time.
They're anomalies.
And we shouldn't base structures on that. And Ken Elzinga is also, I think, falls under that. So we need to think about, as an aggregate, how can we make the median teacher as successful as you? So I think I think it doesn't change your argument. I just think it changes your framing for that argument.
Explain this to me. Jared Edwards says he loves your shirt and he knows you like the bet. He won his last bet against you.
Yeah, Jared's good.
He's watching on LinkedIn. Danny O'Day, jump in with the conversation here if you're still watching. DOD. DOD is going to join us on a future show. Danny O'Day. Explain this to me. You are 18, 19, 20, 21, or 22. You're graduating from high school or you're in college now. And for the last 2 years of your life, you've been influenced by a pandemic. And as the pandemic, 2 years of difficult existence is prepared to get behind you, you are now faced with used car prices that you can't afford and taxes associated with them that you can't afford. You're faced with the highest gas prices you've ever had in your entire life. You're faced with food menu prices higher than they've ever been. You are seeing a community that you love, whether that's Charlottesville, whether that's freaking Boonesville, Palo Alto, Chicago, San Antonio, Fayetteville, Louisiana, a community you love that's becoming less and less affordable than it's ever been. These are all facts. How many people are going to be so disenchanted with economic key performance indicators associated with cost and money, inflation, housing, food, all the stuff we need to live? They're going to be so disenchanted with this that they're going to pursue paths that reward them with financial freedom as opposed to humanitarian rewards like teaching the next generation. Teachers have never had it harder than they've ever had right now because of the pandemic. We all know that's a fact.
Mental health has been extremely spiked, not only in students, but also in teachers.
We can expect that's going to influence whether people get in the profession.
Yeah.
The profession was already cash-strapped. I don't expect we're going to see more people jump into the teaching profession. I think we'll see less. And as inflation impacts and influences America, more people, whether we want to admit this or not, are going to be motivated by financial gain and what jobs pay what and what jobs don't pay. You disagree?
I don't disagree. I think just thematically, some of the things, I think what we're talking about, and something I think that is inevitable, is it is going to change human migratory patterns. I've mentioned this before. People are, there's no way to stop a metropolitan area from growing and those prices to increase, and then it drives people to the outskirts and the rural areas. I think with the living in the age of remote work, it's just going to provide people more freedom in those choices, because I don't think that there was a way to stop that. I think just in Charlottesville, we're feeling it escalate at a higher rate than we ever have before. And with continued focus in the community on equity and inclusion, we realize that this is preferentially advantaging or preferentially disadvantaging minorities. And so we don't want that to happen. We want to have a diverse community. I don't think that there's a way to stop it. The prices are just going to keep going. So people are going to have to make the decision, do I want to live in Charlottesville at this price, or do I want to live in a remote or rural area for a different price point, and which lifestyle makes the most sense to me? I think you're going to find a disproportionately higher amount of people going to choose those rural areas if they can work remotely.
Danny O'Day giving Vanessa Parkhill some props. Vanessa Parkhill is watching on one of 15 Facebook pages, and DOD, Danny O'Day, giving props to Vanessa in the comment section of LinkedIn. Daniel McDougall, DMAC, what up DMAC, watching the program right now. DMAC says this to Lee Elberson. Ready?
Uh-oh.
I have not met one of my clients in the past 2 years, yet I do mortgages all over the state of Virginia. Technology has changed our industry for the better. A client of mine applied online on my website and was approved for a $525,000 mortgage while she was walking her dog. Education will catch up eventually. They must if we are to remain competitive in the world.
I'm not discounting. I think any industry that is approaching adults as the primary consumer of that service, I'm not going to disagree with that at all. I am going to disagree and state that it is a different problem when you're talking about the person who has the buying power is a parent and the person who's consuming the service is a minor, somebody under the age of 15, like 7 or 8 years old. And if it's not effective for them, then the parents are seeing the rise in anxiety and stress and the mental health decline as a result of the pandemic. And that has a lot to do with the fact that school systems do more than just teach. They put students in a peer learning environment and allow them to be captivated, ideally by a teacher. And sure, maybe they could learn better with other supplemental areas, but I think that's what the school provides. It provides the parents a reprieve so that the kids can get away and interact with somebody outside of the major family unit. I don't see that. That's not going away in a decade. I would argue that's probably not going to go away in 2 or 3 decades.
The either terrifying or exhilarating, depending on how you look at it. It's either terrifying or exhilarating thing of the metaverse, is you can interact with other people all over the world in the metaverse in the same ways that we're interacting right now. There will be a digital version of ourselves.
I would say I'm going to immediately argue with what that you're saying is same. You can say similar, but not the same.
We don't know that yet. There's going to be a digital version of Lee Elberson. And the digital version of Lee Elberson is going to be able to enter the metaverse. And while the digital version of Lee Elberson is in the metaverse, he's going to be able to go to the bar, play some poker, go to the classroom, sell some real estate, apply for a mortgage, do a walkthrough of a home, and check the quality of construction and whether the home meets his standards. And he's going to be able to do all that in the metaverse. Why would we, in a world where time is our most precious commodity, why would we spend 3 hours or 2 hours traveling to and from a real estate listing when we can potentially put on some goggles and in 3 minutes walk through that house we want to buy? Agents will take the listings they currently have, the really capable and skill-setted ones, and they're going to take the listings they currently have, they're going to put them in the metaverse, and they're going to tell everyone in the world, not just people within 10 minutes of the listing, but everyone in the world, they're going to market this listing to everyone in the freaking world. There's a home on Locust Avenue in Charlottesville that's for sale for $600,000, and here it is. Come take a look at it in the metaverse. You immediately have increased your buying pool by millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people, as opposed to the 4,000 or 5,000 around the listing in real life. The metaverse is the definition of our most precious commodity, a savings of time.
I think, again, just to argue for the sake of a talk show, I think what I'm hearing is if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And if you're in an industry where everything happens socially and virtually, then it seems like that is the end all be all. I will say that my objections are not just that. If you're asking that there are specific avenues where being in a virtual setting will save you time, I won't disagree with that. If that's what you're saying, that specific instance, yes. And if there's other instances like that, I'm going to say yes. If you're saying that same thing will apply to education, I'm saying no. The American Recovery Act, which just issued billions for education, was backed on thousands of peer-reviewed journal articles, and the best way to learn right now and based in virtual environments is a one-to-one in-person tutoring session. Obviously, that is not feasible for scaling, but I think when they scaled out, all of it happens around captivating younger individuals in person. When you're in a virtual environment, you don't have the same consequences as you do when you're in a real in-person environment. And I think that's really tough to reproduce. If you're forecasting 100 years from now where we can simulate a human brain, and in this you don't know the difference between reality and being in person, I think your argument becomes much more definitive. But in the time until we reach that, you're not going to be able to have the same consequences as you will in person. And that's why I think in-person learning will not go away with any substantiation in the next decade.
University, let me ask you this. What university in America has the highest, and Judith, you want to...
Now, we're talking about universities. I'm talking about I'm talking about under the age of 15. College kids, we know that they can learn virtually. We've proven that they can do that. That's different. That's a capitalism problem. Colleges are trying to make money. In terms of effectiveness of individuals under the age of 13 learning, peer-reviewed research shows that they learn better in person.
Gentlemen, here's a question for you.
So, yeah.
You ready? Why don't you go to the 3-shot if you could?
Oh, Mardi Gras beads, man.
Here, take my Mardi Gras. Okay. I don't want to. You gave me your strand. We have okay.
Throw me something, mister. That's what you guys
Take your shirt off. Take your shirt off.
You know, I got maybe I got a pretty face. You know?
Take your shirt off.
Oh.
Take your shirt off.
Okay, great. Thank you, Judah.
Okay. What? You on a 3-shot?
Yeah.
What university in America has the highest enrollment of any university?
You're asking me this?
Liberty? University of Phoenix.
Why does the University of Phoenix have the highest enrollment of any university?
Logistics.
Because you don't have to go to Arizona.
Exactly.
So logistics. I don't know.
Because it's
what,
online.
Yeah. I don't know what.
What's the second highest enrollment in college in the university in America? You already said it.
Liberty.
Liberty.
Yeah.
Why?
It's a logistical problem.
Because you can take the classes online.
You're a capitalist. Which college produces the most number of billionaires? Guaranteed, it's not university. They don't produce any.
We've already indicated that items like billionaires, Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg are anomalies.
I was going to try to track you in the anecdotal fallacy, but
anomalies.
We don't need to think about enrollment. We need to think about like how effective are they in the marketplace. And so, if you're going to argue that those are effective, I'm not saying I have not said that college students can't learn well in a virtual environment. I'm saying that as you try to scale that to younger individuals,
the premise of your argument is this: that young kids need in-person human interaction to foster socialization.
Yeah,
that's the entire premise of your argument.
Yeah,
and without in-person learning, they won't be socialized correctly, so they won't have the skill set needed for when they become adults. That's the entire premise of your argument.
I will preface this. Without some community-centric way to socialize, that went away in the agricultural revolution when we stopped raising kids in tribes and we started having hyper-specific family units. So I think it doesn't have to be in school. There's other ways to do it, but with most families working as much as they do, I don't know how you reproduce that in a community environment.
And my response to that will be, technology is going to improve and innovate at such a clip and frequency that the interaction needed for maturation and socialization is going to happen in the metaverse. Children today, and we hate this, my wife and I certainly do, are spending so much time with screens and on digital and social media. So much time, certainly more so in the pandemic, that it has become a concern and or an addiction and or creating levels of depression, anxiety, and suicide that have never been seen before. Those are all facts.
Yeah.
Anybody who looks it up will see that what I'm saying is factually 100% correct. We, as a world and as a populace and a population, we will see technology evolve dude, how old is this network? 5 years ago?
Something
5
like that.
years?
I mean, if you look at your entry role, dude, you look like you're 17 years old.
I went to my wife.
You can do B-roll for that.
I went to my wife. Well, that's that guy over there. I went to my wife 5 or 6 years ago, and I said, "We're going to take a shoot." My wife and I. When did we meet, sweetheart? I should know this.
Does she watch the show?
She does.
I never see Lauren.
We've been married for 5 years. Right when we got married, and I said, "Sweetheart, we're going to take over $30,000 of our money and dump it into creating this network." And she said to me, "What? Are you crazy? Why are you doing that?" And then she said to me, "You have proven your vision and risk-taking is worth pursuing. Go do it." And I did it. And it worked. And it proved to be the right decision. If 5 years ago, some schmuck on Market Street can take 30 G's and create a brand and a network that is as synonymous with Charlottesville as basically the University of Virginia, what is someone that's going to be well-resourced through either private equity funding, a publicly traded company, or the investments of people like, Zuckerberg or Gates or Bezos, what are they going to be able to do with technology and innovation?
Okay.
Look at what we did with 30K.
I think it shows if you have the drive and the desire what can be done with somebody who's motivated. I think what I'm arguing is should it be done? Like maybe it's a pointless argument. Same way they argued, hey, should we use stem cells to reproduce, or should we use CRISPR edits to edit genes? Like the should argument is mainly academic because people are going to do it. So somebody with that much power is going to do it. And I would argue that like if that transition happens in 10 years, the real problem is we won't know the repercussions of that within that 10-year period. We will do it and then learn of the repercussions. Maybe we continue to see a mental health decline, continue to see an increase in teen suicide, and by that point, maybe we reach some sort of epidemic, and then I think we're a pretty adaptive species, and so we can certainly adapt from there. But it's like looking at these graphs in here, and if we said, hey, can we slow the median housing price increase, or can we keep the gas prices level? If we can adapt that now, yes, let's do it. Now, maybe this is the same argument that we say, hey, we shouldn't jump into the metaverse this early. We should give ourselves 20 years to be able to adapt and understand the consequences. But if we're not going to do it, then maybe this argument is academic.
At one time, there was a guy that had an idea of creating a car tied to electricity. And that guy was mocked and ridiculed by everyone that said gas was the only way to get around in a car. Now, that guy is celebrated and revered, and his name is Elon Musk.
There was also a guy who said we should put hydrogen in blimps, and thousands of people died. Sorry, I mean, just like for every point there is a counterpoint, but this is why you like having me on the show, right? Because we go back and forth like this, right?
Daniel McDougall. Lee may be betting that technology cannot create the socialization aspect through AI methods. Imagine creating a virtual classroom where you cannot tell the difference from today's. That's what's going to happen. That is 100% going to happen.
Now that's getting into
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, if you're saying that that's definitely going to happen,
that is going to happen.
I won't argue with that. I would say that it won't happen within our lifetime.
No way, dog.
If you're talking about simulating I'm talking about simulating human consciousness. That's the only way I think for it to truly be different. We're talking about simulation argument here, by the way, which I'd love to do an entire show on that.
Well, Judah has some takes on these. Go to the 3-shot and tell us when you have some takes on these. Judah Wickower.
Love to talk about the simulation argument. It's one of my favorite topics.
All right, Meta might be on the rise, but we're not gonna be. If anyone out there has seen Ready Player One, that's not coming in, I think, any of our lifetimes. That would require way too much technology.
I don't
fully
think
haptic feedback, so that you can feel everything that is occurring in a virtual realm. That's not coming anytime soon.
Or maybe even more than that, in Ready Player 2, the OniNet, where it's directly tied to your neurotransmitters. That's what I'm saying. Like that's the only place.
I hate to say this to you guys here, but very few people watching this program know about Ready Player 1 or Ready Player 2.
What? One of the most popular books, Ernest Cline, one of the most popular. If you haven't read it, it's a great read, right? You'll attest to this.
Okay.
If you love sci-fi, it's a great read.
I bet you would lose half the listenership when you use the B word.
Have you ever heard of Steven Spielberg?
Books.
You've heard of him, right?
I guarantee you.
Steven Spielberg made it into a movie.
You've lost half the people when you said books.
So anyway, I think what we're talking about is like when you're trying to reproduce reality, the only way to do that with some significance is that if the individual genuinely doesn't know the difference whether they are in reality or a virtual world. There's a tremendous amount, the guy who wrote the simulation argument is escaping me right now. Bozeman, I think his name is. And he comes up with calculations on the processing power necessary to do that based on the number of neural connections we have. I'm not saying we will never get there. guarantee you we will not get there in 10 years.
I would bet that by the time my 4-year-old son, almost 4-year-old son, is out of school, out of high school, he will have the option of legitimately, and we will consider it seriously, learning remotely than in a classroom.
Oh, okay.
And my wife and I will say, you know what? Why don't we take 3 or 4 weeks off during the school year? Our son can still learn, and let's go travel somewhere.
That'll never happen, Jerry. You don't know how to go on vacation,
That's
man.
that's going to happen. You wait and see.
Lauren might, but you don't.
That's
Now,
gonna
okay.
happen.
Now, having the option, I would say yes. I would say wide scale. Like, so basically, you're saying like in the next 15 years,
Yeah.
or 10 years, right?
I mean, he's
You're
not
saying
even 4.
Yeah.
So in the next 15 years, he'd be.
Let's say 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So he's still in high
still
school.
middle school.
Will he have the opportunity? Yes, you have the opportunity right now. Will it be more than 50% of the students doing that? No. That's my prediction, but this is my bailiwick, right? I know a little bit about education. I would be extremely surprised if in the next 15 years, more than 50% of the students.
I wish we had Doc Brown's flux capacitor and DeLorean, and we could set the flux capacitor
1.21 gigawatts.
1.21 gigawatts and go to 15 years from now. I wish we could. I really, 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 really wish we could.
You know, you wouldn't be in a classroom. Jared'd be looking at the stock market. You know that. He'd be thinking about, he'd buy that sports almanac. You would be the guy, Jerry, that would do that.
15 years from now, I would be selling virtual Skittles for 35% markup in the virtual cafeteria.
You know, we didn't get to the EV segment. Are we going to do that another time?
We got to. This is what happens when you come on. This is why you and I make good fodder in talk shows.
Yeah.
It's because, we have very different opinions. We do it in respectful fashion that's good for viewership and listenership, and it's enjoyable for the 2 of us and 3 of us. Multiple people I do want to admit, I see, including one of my favorite, Katie Pearl, have indicated that they've never heard of Ready Player 1 or 2. I see the comment done 6 times so far on the feed right here.
Is there a 2?
Yeah, there's
Well,
a
he
2.
said there was a 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
The book is out too. Judah, don't waste your time.
It's the B word. It's the B word. It's the B word. All right. Why don't we close on this?
Let's close on something either happy or actionable or both.
You don't want to close with any of my local topics? Well, we covered a lot of the local topics. We talked the Commissioner of Revenue raising personal property taxes, and we discussed that from a macro and micro standpoint. We also discussed why raising taxes is going to marginalize the middle class and make the lower class even more populous, which is what real estate assessments and the tax rate increase are. We did not cover this. I'll save this for Monday. Charlottesville City Police Department, 90 of 117 positions are currently filled. That means they have 27 open positions. You're a math whiz. 27 open positions when there's 117 total. What are we talking about there? That's
20%.
22%?
Something like that.
22%?
Say let's ballpark it at 20.
Yeah. 20% of the police department's positions are currently vacant. That right there, we can spend an entire show on.
Let's spend some time on some happy stuff.
I will.
Jared. New restaurant on the downtown mall, Botanical. I'm going there right after this.
Ryan Becklin.
You had her on the show last week.
Ryan, 2 Fridays ago.
Yeah.
Ryan Becklin. I don't know if you saw the little Instagram skirmish I got in when I called it the first vegan restaurant in Charlottesville history. Did you see that?
Well, no, when you mentioned that, so I actually made that same claim too. It's not the first, but it's the first plant-based. And there's a difference. That's why I asked Ryan to cover it between vegan and plant-based.
I called it vegan, and it opened up the Pandora's box of the vegan community, highlighting why that was not the first.
Yeah.
The vegan community is
I might have
very
put that
passionate.
seed in your head. Yeah.
I think
very,
you did
very.
put the seed in my head. They're very, very passionate, the vegan community.
Yeah.
Which we know.
I made that same claim too. So
almost rabbin. So why don't we close on any topic you want? It is 2:00 here. And what time does she close on a Friday? Did you look that up?
I think she's open till 5 or 6.
Okay,
so,
that would make sense.
Yeah, I texted her. She's probably watching, and I told her I'd come by afterwards.
Ryan Becklin, you are A+ people. You did a hell of a job on this show, the owner of Botanical. All right, we'll close in 5 minutes. Anything you want to cover?
All right, so we're coming out of this. We're coming out of the pandemic, right? Or we've entered in the endemic phase. We're feeling very comfortable. We should be traveling and getting out and doing all the things that we didn't do, right?
Okay.
I'm planning, you know this, I'm planning my multi-week Jeep trip, September, October. I will not be in Charlottesville. We will be traveling around the country. We're going to start doing some overlanding trips, going out camping. I'm curious about you, Jerry. What are your vacation plans this year?
The difference that I have with a lot of people.
Jerry doesn't go on vacation.
The difference that I have.
He talks about going on vacation. He doesn't go on vacation.
The difference that I have than a lot of people is what I'm doing right now is a vacation.
Spoken like a true workaholic.
It's a vacation. I get to, for X amount of hours a day, sit in a set, in a studio that we own, in a building that we own, and talk with awesome people. I sincerely mean this, and my wife can attest to this. I look forward every day to come into here. I've been pumped sincerely and genuinely for 48 hours with the excitement that you were going to be across the table.
What? Oh man,
You texted me this morning. You texted me this morning at what time?
It might have been like 4:30 a.m. I was up really early.
It was really early.
Yeah.
About being super pumped to come on this show.
Yeah.
And were you super pumped?
I was super pumped.
And that super pumped feeling, guess what? I feel that every day.
It's awesome. Yeah, I crushed Wordle in 3 guesses today.
You
so
sent
I
me
felt
that
like-
as
yeah.
well.
You play Wordle, by the way?
I don't play much. I don't do that.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe the people out there don't know what Wordle is. It's only like the rage, right? Yeah, okay. Judah knows. Judah plays. All right, good. Well, I mean, I think that's fine. But I think trying to get out and enjoy things in our community more, I've been doing that and just not feeling tied to the mask all the time, and just trying to see all of the smaller businesses that I might not have noticed. Jerry, you do a good job of showcasing them. But you know, they're not all in the downtown mall. So how do we find out all the new businesses that are opening? Obviously, CIC has a great, if you go on their website, but where else do we find new businesses that are opening that may have slipped under my radar at CIC and your radar at I Love Seville?
Well, I learned from Alex Serpian today, Manana, the CACVB as an events calendar or a business listing.
Cool.
On the Charlottesville Albemarle Convention and Visitors Bureau website.
The Erpies are good people.
Erpies are good people. You know what? I think it's extremely challenging. Blake says he and his wife will be in Charlottesville in May to stay with the Albersons.
Hey, I might have to take him by the studio. You're going to have to finally meet Blake.
Okay, Blake Hawthorne, we're going to meet you. We're going to meet you. Kevin Yancey, the mayor of Waynesboro, hello and welcome to the program. You have 7 states on the feed as we speak.
One thing I didn't get a chance to show a slide of, if you are trying to buy a house, which I know is very difficult now, I'm happy. I'll share in the resources with Judah the decision matrix I made, and it does a good job of helping you lay out the criteria that are important to you. I lay out about 30 different criteria. It's not important to me. It's good enough. Our realtor asked me for a copy of it.
Is that the quarterback?
We wanted to work with QB, but that guy's just so busy, you know. Okay. So we're with Jim Duncan.
Okay,
no.
Okay. We got. Have you got that graphic on screen?
Yeah, I think it's graphic number 5. Yeah, so basically, yeah, you can see there that a decision matrix, basically, you just list criteria that's important to you.
This is literally a decision matrix. This man is brilliant. How many criteria are in this matrix? Are you got that on screen, Judah?
Yeah, I think there's about 23 different criteria. And so basically the idea behind a decision matrix is you list the criteria which is important to you, which is for us bedrooms, kitchen size. For us, distance to Whole Foods and distance to downtown is important. I know that sounds weird, but when you're a vegan, Whole Foods is like your air. Are you a vegan? Yes. No, not anymore. I eat eggs now, so when we cook at home, with the exception of eggs, we cook vegan, but when we go out other places, I will eat things that are not vegan. With the exception, I don't eat dairy or meat.
Let me ask you this. This decision matrix is so specific. I mean, it is so specific here. He's got HOA, washer, dryer, location, same as primary suite. Supplemental rental unit.
Automatically calculates the distance to downtown. That's pretty clutch.
He wants a supplementary rental unit in there. Property slope.
So basically, what it does is
Time to downtown.
it adds it up, and at the top, that final score says, hey, what percentage of our criteria has been met? And most realtors will tell you that you're looking for 3/4 of the things you want, right?
Well, especially
so
for the first time, for the first house.
Yeah, so if something meets 75% of that criteria, what it's supposed to do is to say, oh, okay, cool, so this house meets that. But then you always have your gut check. It's like, does this seem right? And if the answer is no, then, I mean, heck with the statistics, heck with the metrics, right? You have your gut to tell you that. But we use this as a way to help us benchmark when we feel like we're ready. So this last house obviously would have met that, but, you know, houses are going, I think that house went for like $75,000 above asking price.
Okay, how many homes met this criteria?
Well, so you can see this is actually, I blocked out the addresses, but this is actual percentages. So at the top, our house meets, the house that we're renting right now meets 67% of our criteria. The last house we looked at met 75% of our criteria. Again, I'm happy to share it with you, and you can create your own, like the importance, you set that factor yourself and then you rate it yourself. But again, it just gives you that sort of gut check of saying, hey, just based on what you rated it as, this house is better than this. And it also helps our realtor, because now he looks at this and says, this is what's important to you. And so now when he sends us stuff, he doesn't send us anything that doesn't match this criteria.
So no crib has met 100% of the criteria yet?
And it's it's impossible. No house will be, because you rate it on a scale of 1 to 5, right? Like, hey, what's the storage? I mean, not everything is going to be a 5, right? What's the noise level? Not everything is going to be a perfect 5. And even the distance to Whole Foods. I mean, unless we buy exactly in between Whole Foods and downtown, which would be, I guess, sort of like Rugby Road area, you know, nothing is going to be 100%. But this tells us, based on where you're living now, this is better than that. And so, again, it's very helpful, and I'm happy to share it with anyone if anyone cares that they want it.
I think they would care.
Our realtor told us, he's like, a lot of people just go with whatever feels right. So
I love it. This guy is A+ People. He's Lee Elberson, of CEO of Claiborne and one of the executives at 8 Hats.
8 Hats. Yep. You need any web hosting? Obviously, come to us. Business support is awesome. And then, of course, education. I'm always happy to talk about it. I tell parents all the time, you have any questions, call me. I'll have a conversation with anybody.
And he legitimately will.
Yep.
I hope you guys have enjoyed today's talk show as much as we enjoyed hosting today's talk show, which is an indication and reflection of our friend Lee Elberson, who every single time he comes on the program leaves me feeling more zestful for life and more
excited about spreadsheets too, right?
Energetic and enlightened and more eager to grind even more at work.
And actually, I would say less egocentric. I'll take back my initial comments. That's the E that doesn't fall on us.
Lee, Judah, Jerry, the I Love Seville show on a Friday. Keep your business local in whatever community you live upon, and support the moms and pops and the businesses and brands that you want to see survive these inflationary periods and times. Thank you kindly for joining us. Take care, everyone. Dude, phenomenal. Did you have fun?
Always have.